Hello, friends, and welcome back for episode 3 of the Schmoofcast. We're here. It's Brett and Kristen. We are gigantic theme park nerds. We're Disney nerds. We're Universal nerds. Together, we have over 20 years combined working in the hospitality-themed entertainment industry, and we are here to share our love of said industry with all of you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so welcome back for episode 3. And on today's episode, we're going to be discussing,
unpopular opinions. At least my unpopular opinion. Because this is not something that I think a lot of people would agree with. It's definitely not something that you generally agree with. But I think I have really solid points.
Yeah, I mean, we'll dive into details in a few seconds here. But today's really question is, what is the better attraction? Is it Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run? Or is it Star Wars Rise of the Resistance?
And you guys knew this was coming. If you'd previously listened to Walt Love Podcasting with Brett and Mike and Josh, I'm sure that you remember they spoke about Galaxy's Edge a lot. I promise that we will try not to do that as much here because I don't think it's that interesting.
Well, we've mentioned Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge is very interesting. However, Galaxy's Edge is interesting in the way that I was going to say kinetics again, but I feel that's not worth it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so there it is. What is the better attraction? The better overall guest experience, attraction, for whatever reason you think so?
I hands down think that Smugglers Run is a better attraction than Rise of the Resistance. There, I said it. And I think that that's 100% true. I have a lot of reasons for that, but I do think that it is just a better guest experience because of a couple of different points. The first one being, if you are not up to date on Star Wars, or even if you just don't particularly like the new trilogy of Star Wars movies, you will not understand or enjoy Rise of the Resistance.
Rise of the Resistance I will be 100% honest with you, I am not the biggest Star Wars fan at all. Like, I know what a Star Destroyer is, I know what Darth Vader is, I know my way around the universe. But every average guest, including myself, knows what the Millennium Falcon is. Everybody does. But
the big thing with Rise of the Resistance is it takes place specifically between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. It is a very set
all of Batuu is set in that time frame, though.
Right, but you don't have to know that to enjoy Batuu. There is nothing about the Batuu experience that ties into that besides the character meet and greets. Besides seeing Rey or seeing Chewbacca or any of that, it doesn't give a specific feeling of a certain time, which is why the nice thing with Smugglers Run is it doesn't have to be within those confines. They do have like a few references, but I think it was very smart of Disney because they pulled a character that most people did not know or did not realize was part of the Star Wars world, because Hondo Ohnaka is just in Rebels, right?
I really don't know.
But
I think he is just Rebels.
That's more to my point, is that it's a character that is part of the Star Wars lore if you are a big, big Star Wars fan. But if you're not, then you don't have to have this big backstory. Yeah, you see Chewbacca, and yeah, the Millennium Falcon's there, and yeah, that's really, really cool. As a Star Wars fan, that's exceptionally cool. There is nothing quite as surreal as being able to pull the light speed lever as a pilot on Smugglers Run, or even any of the positions. It's a great attraction.
Hondo was in the Clone Wars, by the way.
Perfect.
So he's been around. He's been around the block enough.
But if you weren't a spin-off fan, so unless you watch Clone Wars or Rebels or anything like that, if you just know the movies, then you're not going to know who Hondo Ohnaka is.
But let me also stop you right there and say that if you don't, the folks who would know who Hondo Ohnaka is are the folks who know Ahsoka. Is that saying that right? Ahsoka Tano? And Bo-Katan, which are all now these big Mandalorian characters. So people should know who Hondo is if they've been watching Mandalorian, because I assume...
No, that's such BS.
No, yeah, connect the dots back there. Because
if you hadn't done Smugglers Run, you wouldn't know who he is either. And you were the one who had to watch Mandalorian as soon as it was available.
Okay, so
you... No. Just no.
Okay, so is Hondo needed in that ride, though? Do you need a Hondo? Would it work with just a Chewie animatronic up there?
No, that's what I'm getting at, is that it's not stuck in a specific time frame.
Hondo ages. He's not invincible.
No, but because you don't necessarily know the character, it gives it more flexibility.
Okay, but
if you know the character, then you're going to appreciate it on a different level. If you don't know the character, he's not detracting from it in any way. That being said, if you're not a Star Wars fan, Smugglers Run is 100% the better attraction because it sticks to the sci-fi genre. If you were nothing else but knowing that you are about to pilot a spaceship, that's pretty darn cool. That's a pretty fantastic attraction. And from the queue experience to even the greeters out front as they're welcoming you as recruits and pilots for this company, through the queue experience where you're overhearing these made-up characters that are bickering throughout the entire thing, from when you go through with Hondo to kind of get a better understanding to when you get to the cockpit. You don't have to know anything about Star Wars to find that interesting. It could be just you're going in to pilot a spaceship. Could be any spaceship. People are going to hate me for saying this, but it could be something from Star Trek. Who knows? It's just something that falls within a genre, so it is appropriate for a wider audience. Rise of the Resistance has the exact opposite, where it is a niche market for a niche fan, and those are the people that are going to enjoy it. I say this as someone who, I don't particularly enjoy Rise of the Resistance. I think it's a little, the sets are overwhelming. The story is haphazard at best most of the time. I've actually only ever seen the entire story play out once, and that was right when it opened. And we talk about this a lot outside of podcasting, but there is actually a scene when you are supposed to be getting out of the interrogation room and you're being loaded into your mover droids to take you back to Batuu.
They broke you out. You're being loaded on to the prisoner transports. Yeah.
Right. So there is a clip that is supposed to play there. And I have only ever seen it played once. And it was only during the first month of operation where it is actually Finn coming on the intercom saying, "There you are. We found you. We're going to get you out." And then it goes from there. They've actually cut that spiel to be able to put in a safety spiel about putting your seatbelt on, which is obviously a necessity because that was what we commented on the first time we did it.
It was originally there and it added extra seconds onto the operation time. And the seatbelt spiel was still there, but it was afterwards.
But you lose a giant chunk of the story. Yeah. So suddenly you're loaded, and then Finn's already talking to you mid-conversation, and you're like, what the heck is going on?
And you don't hear him because everybody else is trying to check seatbelts, and you're being loaded while this is playing in the background. And it is not a good experience. And the only time that Finn is even mentioned before that is Rey mentions him in the first pre-show by saying, "My friend Finn infiltrated a Star Destroyer."
No reason why. Yeah. No reason given as to what on earth is going on there.
Well, I guess she does say, it's in our system and our outpost on Batuu is no longer safe. But it
still doesn't explain why he broke onto a First Order spaceship.
It seems kind of reckless, especially if you've seen, after The Last Jedi, they're kind of, hopeless. They don't have many forces. A lot of their people have died from...
It just is unnecessary. It really doesn't make any sense. Even as a Star Wars fan. But if you are not a Star Wars fan, you will not get any of it.
But I will defend Rise of the Resistance to the end because I think it is a feat of engineering unheard of with any other theme park attraction ever. It really is amazing. And yeah, true, you need to be the Star Wars nerd to understand it. And I think that brings up a good point. If
it was set to the original trilogy,
exactly.
if it was Darth Vader instead of Kylo Ren that was coming at you, if any of that, would that change how you feel about it?
100%, absolutely. If the first projection room would, instead of Rey, if it was Leia instead, and if you walked out and Luke's X-Wing was out there with R2 in it, you still boarded the transport, but then that's Akbar instead of Lieutenant Beck.
Beck
still... Well, Beck works, but you're looking at these characters. The Mon Calamari, who cares? They all look the same. Let's be real there. But then you walk out into the Star Destroyer base. Everything there works still, and then just flip out Kylo for Darth Vader and Huck for Grand Moff Taryn.
But that's the thing. It's so story driven that if you are not invested in that story, it's not going to make a lot of sense. And it's grand, and I'll give you that. And I do think it has one of the greatest feats, if you will, of storytelling in illusion.
Well, yeah, the AT-ATs all have 4 feet.
No.
So they're definitely big. They're great feats. Continue.
Y'all, this is what I deal with. No, I think that when you... This is a spoiler if you've never done it, I'm sorry. But if you... The fact you enter and exit on the same side of the transport, it is specifically made to look like you're going to be walking through this thing, that one door opens, you load into
that was
a loading
amazing.
room, and then you are going to exit the other side because that's what every other attraction has ever been. And no, you actually exit and enter on the same side. You actually move locations and you end up somewhere new. I think that is one of the most interesting twists in an attraction that I have experienced in a great long time.
Even the first day, I mean, we're talking about the ITS shuttle. So being pulled onto the Star Destroyer. Same side. And like the first day, we were out there in the morning of literally the crack of dawn to be first on Rise of the Resistance. We were some of the first groups. It was amazing. And being everybody in there excited, waiting at the opposite end door to get out of the shuttle just because they had no idea what was going on. People still get confused to this day of how to exit this because it's just, there's a certain level that you anticipate out of a theme park attraction. And Disney does this well. Disney pulls the veil over your eyes just enough in certain attractions. I mean, look at like Tower of Terror or look at Rock and Roller Coasters, other attractions in the park where it's, yeah, you're in a haunted hotel, but it's still, you know, safety measures, and they try to do these things that they don't break show, but there's always we expect this to happen. And Tower of Terror's unexpected moment is, of course, the elevator going forward. But you know it's going to drop. Like, that's expected. So throwing something very unexpected at people, like everybody expects a pre-show. I wrote about this on my blog a while ago, too, is that the Ray pre-show, the projection, you look up and you see this, it obviously is a mirror that you're seeing that's reflecting half the room to make it look bigger.
It's not obvious. If you were looking for it. If you're looking for it, yeah, it's going to be obvious. But if you are just cursory glancing, it is a very convincing effect.
Yeah, well, so the average theme park guest, the average first-time guest or second-time guest is going to know that. Those of us who've been on Haunted Mansion 400 times are like, oh, it's a mirror, or this is a mirror effect, or you know how certain effects work in the theme park universe.
How does it feel to be jaded?
It's an Aerosmith song. Rock and Roller Coaster is still closed. We have to not mention Aerosmith right now. Jaded!
Crickets, man.
Yeah, that's
just
horrible.
Crickets. You're gonna have to cut
there's
that.
There's a reason I'm not a comedian.
That was really bad.
So what was it we've been discussing?
I don't know.
Oh no! So the mirror effect. All these mirror effects. As a seasoned theme park guest, especially Disney and Universal, with all of these just effects you see in different attractions, you expect mirrors at a certain point. So looking at it as a seasoned guest is like, oh, that's a mirror. And then seeing the hologram appear that is not at the curvature of the slant of the mirror, it put me through a loop. It was like, wait, what? And then doing like further pictures and zooming in at it, it's a television screen placed behind the one-way mirror. The TV screen is positioned away from the mirror so that it looks like an actual projection that is not aligned with the mirror. And it is a really interesting effect. And I cannot describe it with words. I need pictures.
None of that made any sense to me either. Don't worry. We're in this together.
So, Rise of the Resistance continuously takes what Disney Imagineering has learned over their course of, how long have they been operating now? 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years? Forever? They've been at the theme parks. They've done these things. They have milked these effects for years. And then being able to give you something that you're used to seeing, but then turn it on its side is absolutely awesome. It is great.
Well, I'm not saying, as I said, I'm not saying that Rise of the Resistance isn't grand. I'm not saying that some of the feats that they've conquered within that attraction aren't incredible. I am saying, as a guest experience, Smugglers Run, I think, has rewritability. I think it is more interesting. I think it appeals to a wider range of audiences. There's so much more about that attraction that I enjoy, and a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, well, if you're piloting, you're going to have a great time. I don't pilot. I don't. I play gunner.
I think pilot's boring.
That's my main thing. I think pilot's great if you are doing it for the first time. I think that, honestly, I cannot get over, for example, like for me, my parents are huge Star Wars fans. And when they came and they were able to be pilots and my dad was able to pull the lever,
oh my god, your dad lost his mind.
He essentially like just started giggling. And this is a man in his 60s, people. Like, that was huge for him and for my mom too. And we went on Rise of the Resistance and they had the same the reaction that I had when I got off, which is just meh.
Well, I mean, I think your mom literally said, "That's it."
Probably.
And I was like,
But that's the other thing. For example, Rise of the Resistance tries to shoehorn in a lot of things. And for example, one of those things really doesn't work with certain audiences. My mother is hard of hearing, is very nearly deaf. So she was just kind of in there, looking around, seeing things. The First Order person was trying to interact with her and was trying to like poke fun. She couldn't hear them at all. She wasn't getting any of that. And it doesn't work when we were trying to reiterate it to her.
This was all pre-pandemic too. This wasn't even masks.
This was pre-pandemic. So it was just something that she was like, you know, it's cool, but they don't have a lot going on in terms of understanding. If you have any kind of hearing challenges or visual challenges, that ride is rough. For example, like even if you're just looking at the interrogation room, you can't, it's not like you can lip read that screen from that far. And
there's no closed captioning.
There's no closed captioning. It's all just.
I don't even know how an audio visual assistant device would help on that ride. I
have no idea. But I also think that does color my opinion, because you can go on Smugglers Run and they have closed captioning on what's going on like to explain things to you, but it's a visual attraction. You don't have to know what's going on. The only time that you need to have a clear understanding is when Hondo is literally yelling at you, do this, and it's accompanied by buttons lighting up or things like that. So it's multiple cues that aren't just audio or even visual. You're kind of getting both of those, and you really don't get that in Rise of the Resistance. So that's another tick against it, in my opinion. But I just think that there's so much more rewritability with Smugglers Run. We literally, I kid you not, we go on it simply to try and crash worse than we did before.
We had a group, so we went out to Disneyland for the opening for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. We were out there for opening for a few days. That is a story for another time, because that was a wild time.
Talk about chaos.
Yeah. I mean, the parks were dead. Galaxy's Edge was nearly empty. It was an absolutely wild experience. And I think
we'll talk about that some other time.
We'll talk about that some other time, of course. But it reached a point where we were in Galaxy's Edge, and with the Disneyland reservation system, you were given a wristband that once you entered, they scanned it, and you could not leave the land for re-enter. Like, you can leave to go do something else, but you couldn't come back in. So we ended up like, what else do you want to do? You want to ride Smugglers Run for the 10th time? So it did get to the point where we're going to try to crash it. I think, what was our worst score? Like negative 1900 or something?
No, it was better. It was worse than that. I think it was like negative 2300.
It was a lot. So
like, we owed Honda
credits.
A lot of credits by the end of that.
And I don't know what the cast member can see on the other end before the shuttle turns back around to come in from the carousel. But there was actually a point where we came back and the cast member had their glasses adjusted, like they were
had been thrown around.
Their vest was like half off, and it was just like, what did you do? So, because I mean, and still in storyline, they're still on the ship with you. You don't exit the ship just yet. So it's fun. It was nice to be able to. The rewritability is there. We wouldn't have wrote it that many times if it was boring. Like, I don't think I can ride Rise of the Resistance 5 times in a row.
No, because it's very little rewritability. But that also plays into the current popularity of it. Because if people get on it once during their vacation, they have to be satisfied with that. Because the possibility of getting on it multiple times, unless you are here all the time, is not high.
The possibility of getting on it once is not high. And it is aggravating to be like, I want to discuss this attraction with other people, even online and more. It's just the point of, I don't want to open up that wound of, did you get a boarding group? Were you able to ride during your vacation?
Yeah, that's hard. That is so much stress. It is very hard to explain, but
no attraction should give you that much stress at 7 a.m. in the morning.
Well before you will ever be able to ride it. And like for me, and it's probably very different for you because you have ridden Rise of the Resistance a lot. I'm probably 6 times total.
I have ridden it more times through my camera lens trying to get good pictures of everything than I have actually like experienced it. And I've been on it a lot.
And if you've seen those photos, he's still working on it.
Yeah, it's everything's fine.
But so there's so much like there's just not a lot going on there. Again, there's the feats of technology, great, cool, fantastic. But no, I 100% agree Smugglers Run, or I believe Smugglers Run is a better attraction. And this is a weird thing, but it is one of the few attractions at Walt Disney World that I think have been positively impacted by COVID restrictions. And this is something that for me, we ended up asking for this prior to COVID and pandemic and restrictions of asking for our own pod because of the fact that we knew, well, we're going to have a party of 4 or a party of 5 and we are not in this for the fun doing it well thing. We're in this to probably destroy
We're gonna
it,
wreck
bounce
it.
people around. We don't want to have someone else's experience on it be that just because we're the majority group and that's what we want to do. So,
especially because if you pull a single rider in on that, they're going to get engineer, and then they're going to be like, "Can you pull the ship away from the wall, please, please?"
Yeah. So it's not necessarily fair on that regard, but that's the thing with COVID is because there is only one family per pod, and to be honest, I think that that's the way it should remain. I've heard rumors that they're putting in plexiglass.
They are. So it's going to be a party of 4 and a party of 2.
But I just don't feel like that is the right way to experience that attraction. I think that if you have your own party, even if you're just a party of 2, that you should be able to have that experience the way that you want to have that experience. It's not as if that ride is hurting for capacity.
Oh my god. So there's 4 carousels and there's 4 ADA pods, 2 ADA pods?
There's a lot of them. There's a lot to the point where it's exciting because if you are ADA, it is one of the few attractions at Walt Disney World that you can do that you do not need to wait a full round of an attraction in order to have an accessible, because they only have the one.
Yeah, that attraction can put through so many guests per hour. And I might as well introduce the verbiage right now because I'm sure we're going to use it in future episodes. But if I ever say THRC, that is theoretical hourly ride capacity, which is theoretically how many riders can be put through an hour through an attraction if all the conditions are met perfectly. No downtimes, everybody loads, it's 100% capacity.
Everyone's loading within time. Everyone is disembarking within time. They're able to do safety checks between. There's a lot that goes into those numbers.
And that's theoretical.
But that is honestly what we look at a lot when it comes to Disney attractions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at something like Smugglers Run, which THRC is really big, as opposed to even Rise of the Resistance, that does not have that great of a THRC. It is better than some rides, but compared to what they could be doing, it is pretty darn low.
Yeah, and then it gets into what they consider the OHRC, which is the operational hourly ride capacity. And that's where you hit the slowdowns, we'll say, for lack of better wording. So, I mean, a Smuggler's Run can put through, I want to say, probably over 2,000 an hour.
We have no idea, friends. We are literally guesstimating.
Disney will never give these numbers out either.
And they shouldn't. No major theme park company wants to, because then it gives a better idea of too many breakdowns, businesses, competitors, the whole nine friends.
Okay, but let's give a perspective here. Haunted Mansion has a 2400 THRC.
And it's what we call an omni-mover system, so it is constantly loading and unloading. It is a go, 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 go. If you don't have any downtimes or slowing, you can...
Put through a lot
We refer
of
to
people.
them as people eaters. That's a big thing that we will call them when we're out in the park of looking at things like that, or looking at things like the Little Mermaid ride is another one. It's just a people eater if it is running appropriately. Mansion, you're going to see more slowdowns though for slower boarding or any of those things. If something gets caught, that can happen. Mermaid is awesome when it comes to that, because you can literally, with like accessible load,
There's never a stop.
it literally just like the back of the clamshell flips down, and as you go like on the moving walkway, you just push up in a wheelchair into the clamshell while it's still continuing the omni-mover thing. It is wild. But it really works out well for those things. So when you're looking at those kind of attractions and you're looking at all of these numbers that people can be putting through, when you look at Rise of the Resistance, it is much lower.
Well, it has to be lower for sure. But it's not as bad as, like, say, Frozen Ever After.
Frozen Ever After is the worst.
It has like a 9. It has under 1,000 per hour.
Between that and Grand Fiesta Tour.
Yeah, there's like no capacity at all. That's why those lines are always so long. That's why there's no fast passes ever for Frozen Ever After, because there's no capacity to it. Oh, but then you look at like Rise of the Resistance. So Rise of the Resistance is pushing through 2 vehicles of 8 people, probably about every 45 seconds to that unload area, I want to say. I would actually need to do calculations, but I think it probably is about 1,600 of a THRC. Yeah, I think it's less than 45 seconds. If it's 45 seconds times 16, it'd probably be about 1,440 THRC, but I think it's actually 1,600. But I still think that Smugglers Run has a way higher capacity. Huge.
I would agree. And those lines can move very quickly. I think that as long as they don't have a downtime, then it works out great. And if you're talking about downtime between the two attractions...
I don't even want to discuss it. I'm going to bypass this entirely. You win.
Smugglers Run wins, hands down, about operating time versus downtime.
I don't think I've ever seen the attraction fully go down. Because, like I said, there's 4 turntables.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Each of them have 7...
I'm sure it's happened, but...
Well, we've seen videos and stuff hit online of pods, like the technology on the pods crashing and going to like a Windows home screen. We've seen stuff like that happening, but we've never seen a fully, like, don't come in the building, we're closed. It's down type deal.
Not that I can actively think of. As I said, I'm sure they've happened, but that's not something that we've experienced. Rise is down constantly. And part of that is because of those, again, we're going to say it a lot, those feats of technology. If one of those vehicles gets off by an inch...
Not even an inch.
Centimeters. Literally like a centimeter. If it is off of its tracking, the ride will go down. And it can't just like... It tries, like it gives it, 2 or 3 attempts to try and get back on track. And if it can't get aligned perfectly, it goes down. And then the ride will be down for at least like an hour and a half to reset.
Because they need to go over every puck embedded in the pavement individually because of the wireless vehicles. To make sure that they're all on, they can all respond. It is a wild process. It is an amazingly ridiculous feat of engineering that I don't think we've ever seen something this wild before. I was going to say something like Flight of Passage, but even Flight of Passage is just this... It's a Soarin' vehicle. Runaway Railway opened after Rise of the Resistance, so I don't want to compare it to it.
I mean, you can. They were in development at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess Runaway Railway should have opened up last year at some point before Rise did, but I mean, you're talking about all these wireless cars, these wireless vehicles running around this building.
Which is hilarious because Runaway Railway doesn't have a concern very often with the vehicles. It actually has more concerns with screens not working.
Yeah.
Than it does vehicles getting off track, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if that's because there was already a trackless system built in there that they were able to modify and update and do whatever it is they did.
It's wild. It's the only times that we've seen downtimes is for projection malfunctions, specifically in where the vehicles break off. If you've been on Runaway Railway, They break off in the jungle room to go over the waterfall. And we've seen specific caverns be turned off because they aren't synchronizing properly. Like, we've actually been in one that hasn't been synchronized, and that was fun.
It was very weird.
None of the projections moved. The audio still went on, but it was interesting to say the least. It's all projection based, and Rise of the Resistance is mostly physical. But there's a lot of effects that happen in that ride.
Honestly, though, there's not. Like, you say that, but there's really not.
Okay, so let's discuss the ride. First off, let me also say this, is I think everything before the actual ride is better than the actual ride itself. Is that an unpopular opinion?
I have no idea.
Because I think that the entire Ray pre-show into the ITS, out into the Star Destroyer, like, that is... I'm good at that point.
I think that is awesome. I think the racing is whatever, it's great. I think the BB-8 animatronic in there is incredibly cool. I enjoy the transport system. I think that's awesome. Like I said, it's the greatest twist, in my opinion, that a theme park has done in a long time. And there is nothing quite like as a Star Wars fan, there is nothing quite like stepping out onto the Star Destroyer.
As anything fan, it's so big.
Cavern. It is huge. You'd think, like, I remember seeing pictures and being like, that's not that impressive. And then you literally step into it and you're like, oh crap, a spaceship literally could come through that opening because it is so freaking big.
I think that room is bigger than a single flight of passage theater.
I have no idea.
It's bigger than a Soaring theater. It's huge. It's gigantic.
It is a giant space.
Anyway, no, I don't. But as to what's the better ride, as grand and as miraculous that Rise of the Resistance is, I think I need to side with you though. That Smugglers Run is it's a better attraction.
I'm not going to say it's a better attraction. I think that there's a lot of things that go into attractions. I'm going to say it's a better guest experience. I think 100% that it is a better guest experience. I feel like people are probably more satisfied when they get off of Smugglers Run than they are Rise of the Resistance. I'm sure that there will be information eventually coming out from Disney about that. They love those details about guest satisfiers.
No amount of effort, no ride should be worth the amount of effort you need to put that you put into Rise of the Resistance to get on it. No attraction should have you waking up bright and early in the morning to potentially get a boarding group that may or may not ride the attraction that day. There is absolutely no reason why there's no standby at this point for it.
That's what I think. I don't understand why they don't just do standby and make the line at capacity. And people are going to say, oh, well, people are going to flood the end of the line waiting for it to reopen. Guess what, guys? That's what the Streets of America refurb was literally meant for. It's meant to be a holding pen for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, specifically for Rise of the Resistance. Why do you think that line has the capability to circle all the way through that tunnel directly to the streets?
That's why the tunnel has that weird cutoff towards the left.
Why it is there was to make it so that if people were waiting to join the line once it was at capacity, that they would have places to wait, that they would have beverages and bathrooms available, possibly even a side attraction to get them into, i.e. Muppets. There's so much there that it was literally built for that, and yet somehow we have yet to use it for that, which is unfortunate because it just makes that area dead space.
No amount of satisfaction for a guest riding Rise of the Resistance is worth the negative impact it has on somebody who tried to get a boarding group but was denied one.
I've seen people cry. I have felt so bad because I have literally seen people burst into tears because they couldn't get a boarding group.
Oh my God,
this was before pandemic. This is when it was, right when the park opened and you had to be on your app. Like,
we were next to a just married couple from Canada who was here for 1 or 2 days and huge Star Wars fans, and this is their one shot at it, and they missed it. And the dude, he was like, I want to say mid-30s, he just started bawling his eyes out right outside of Baseline Tap House. And I was like, oh, dude, I felt really bad for the dude. It sucked. I actually think I told him to go talk to the guest relations team just to see if there was anything that they could do with the guest experience team. Just because you have this they're crying. This is
I mean, it's a once in a lifetime for a lot of these Star Wars fans. I know it was like that when my parents came. We were like, we did everything we could. We processed everything. We did all the things we were supposed to, and we were still like prepping them that there's a possibility we're not going to get it. And it was the only day that we were going to Hollywood Studios. It was the only chance that they had to do it. And they'd been waiting for a long time to see it.
And they were, I was the one doing the entire boarding group process to get the boarding group for us. And they were stressed that I was stressed. And I was like, that was a fun morning.
Oh, I was so stressed. I was so stressed because all I wanted was for them to get on it. And then I was making you more stressed because I was pushing you to be like, are you paying attention? Are you doing it? And like, luckily in our instance, it worked out. For a lot of people, it doesn't. And that sucks. That 100% sucks. And I do think that has something to do with the fact that I think that Smugglers Run is better. Because Rise creates this anxiety and this
It creates this overhype for this attraction. Nothing is worth that. I will tell you right to the face. I waited 10 hours for Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure when it opened in 2019 over at Universal.
I did not.
I got there at 6:30 in the morning, and I did not get on that attraction until 5 p.m. Nothing in life is worth waiting 10 hours for. I want to say nothing.
Not in a theme park,
anyways. Not in a theme park, yeah. Nothing in a theme park is worth waiting 10 hours for. Even, like, no, just nothing. Nothing's worth 10 hours. It's not worth their time. So being able to get a boarding group at 7 in the morning and then not being able to maybe ride until 4 or 5 p.m., it's just like, I don't know what to do with this information. I don't want to tell people to not ride it because I think it is an amazing attraction, but I don't think that it is worth the make or break on your vacation to get on the ride. And I know people have a lot of feelings about us being locals because we have ridden it so much, and people who are not here all the time have not had a chance to do that. And I don't openly talk about how many times I've been on Rise of the Resistance, for that reason. Because I feel guilty. I feel kind of bad.
But you also, you went every day for a long time. And there were days that you couldn't get on, and there were days that you could get on.
Yeah.
So I think that's different. But that is also the fact that you are local, that you had the ability to be there, that, if you're working in the afternoon, you could be there at 7 in the morning.
And if I missed my shot, okay, cool, I missed my shot. That wasn't the end all for me. I'm not going to move out of Orlando because I missed my potential boarding group. But people, it is a make or break for a vacation. And talking to people and being around people in the morning at studios, which doesn't happen anymore, but that did, you would tell. And it would be just a weird experience. But I'm glad it's over with. It's still happening at 1 p.m. and people say that there's still cheers and boos from the crowd at 1 p.m. But
I'm sure there are. I'm sure as long as they continue that system that there will be. Because there is going to be a lot of people that don't get the chance to ride it.
Yeah. Which is a shame. Which is why Smugglers Run is better.
Because
not only can you ride it, you can ride it multiple times. Even with Rise of the Resistance, you can only do it once for the day.
It just makes more sense to me to have an attraction that is accessible to everyone without that stress, that you don't have to be the big Star Wars fan to get it. If you are a big Star Wars fan, then you are going to enjoy it. You get to be in the Millennium Falcon. You get to sit at the chess table. You get to do all of these things that are super quintessential to the story.
Everybody's seen Star Wars.
That's not true. We say that because we've seen it.
I've never seen the original trilogy. I don't think I've ever sat through it all.
You guys can't see my face, but it's as disgusted as you think.
I've seen all of the important pieces. I'm more of the prequel fan. Prequels are much better.
I like the originals. I really enjoy the prequels. I wasn't a big fan of the latest 3, and I think that may also color my opinion. It's just...
Well, the best of the last 3 was, you can crucify me for this later, but was The Last Jedi.
I legit don't know. I kid you not, friends. I saw The Force Awakens 1.5 times.
We saw Rogue One 3 times in theaters.
I've seen Rogue One way more than I've seen the 3 movies. Yep. But that's I don't particularly care for that storytelling. I think it's very discombobulated, which is funny because that's how I feel about Rise of the Resistance. But it's just not something that I enjoy. So I like Smugglers Run because it pulls away from that a bit. Yeah, sure, if you want to dig in. And if you are a big Star Wars fan, you are going to get those references, and that's awesome. Or if you're just a Star Wars movies fan, you're going to get half the references, and you're still going to really enjoy it. Or if you've never seen a Star Wars movie in your life, but you know of the sci-fi genre, you are still going to have a great experience because you get to pilot a freaking spaceship.
Yeah, you can't
Or
go
you
wrong.
get to be part of a spaceship crew. Like, that's just cool.
And that's why it's better than Star Tours, I think.
I don't know if I have an opinion on that.
That's for another episode.
Old Star Tours is the best. New Star Tours, I'd probably say, is not as good as Smugglers Run. I don't know. We'll have to think about that more. You can't just throw me on the spot like that.
Listen,
Rude.
original Star Tours was something else. Yeah, well, that's another topic for another time.
But yeah, so that's my rant about Smugglers Run versus Rise of the Resistance. I have very strong feelings about this, and I've forced you to accept my strong feelings about this.
You can have the strong feelings about it. I still think that the best attraction in Galaxy's Edge is Ronto Roasters.
You are so weird.
The morning Ronto wrap is one of the best experiences at Walt Disney World.
I mean, I'm not going to say that that's wrong because it's delicious.
It is. It's tasty. And I know there's a few people that are going to fight me out there and be like, no, the evening wrap, the regular wrap with the turkey and the ham is much better. No, it's not. The egg is much better.
On that very bizarre note, let us know what you guys think is the better attraction at Galaxy's Edge. If you are a Rise of the Resistance fan or if you're a Smugglers Run fan, I would love to learn why. Because as we've shared, I have very set reasons why I think the way that I do. And I'd love to hear what your opinions are because that makes it more interesting. Also helps me not feel like I'm just a crazy person who's really upset about attractions.
But yeah, I think that's it for this episode, friends. I mean, yeah, let us know. Hit us on social media at the Schmoofs. Let us know how wrong Kristen is, or how wrong I am, or how much you agree with us, or any of the above. If you're the Star Wars fan who wants to yell at me for never actually sitting down and watching the original trilogy, you can do that too. Be more than happy to hear those comments.
Till next time.
Yeah, what is next time?
Who knows?
Yeah. Also, thanks for listening, though, friends. Signing out for the night, this is Brett.
And Kristen.